Today I'm here with Jimi King, who's described as a textile and fabric artist. And today we want to get his insights into his creative process and his work as an artist. So thanks, Jimi, for doing this for you. To get started here, could you give us a little some information about where you're from, where you grew up, and when did you first become interested in this art form?
My name is Jimi King. My ancestry is Yoruba and Sierra Leonean, but my grandfather was able to trace his roots back to Nigeria also. So you can say I'm a full-blooded Nigerian. But above all, I am Yoruba and a citizen of the universe. I am third generation textile artist and fashion designers. My grandfather was a fashion designer, bespoke fashion designer in Sierra Leone. My grandmother was a textile artist in Nigeria, in Abeokuta. She worked with indigo. All the time that I knew her, her fingers was always indigo, was always blue. So it kind of runs in the family, you know. And I am a conduit for God's work, for the creative master's works. So I just try to translate what our ancestors, the gifts that our ancestors gave us, into contemporary fabric and clothing design.
Well, that's very interesting, and I'm kind of glad to hear that you made the connection between contemporary and what's traditional. Obviously, your growing up had a lot to do with that. So do you find in the artistic community, as you move around the world, that people are sensitive or open to being able to connect their own life experience? I mean, other artists that you encounter?
But you know, it's not just artists, people all over the world. We're all one. And from my metaphysical perspective of life, I could have been, or my great-grandfather could have been born in Japan in his past lifetime. Because I believe we have the Buddhist pattern of thought, even the Ifa doctrine believes that you come here many, many, many times. So, you know, whatever you see that's African is not necessarily limited to being African. It could be, it's a universal gift.
It's about humanity.
It's about humanity. It's something that comes from the universe, and it's just translated through me or through the artist to benefit humanity. You know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you answered. Thank you. You know, I'm looking around in your space here at some of your creations. Could you give us a little bit of insight into maybe what your work or creative process is when you know, as you decide you want to make a piece?
I have an archive of thousands of different motifs and fabric design concepts that I kind of compiled from museums in England, because they have more of our ancestral fabrics and artifacts in Britain and in Germany, going back to slavery and, you know. So I made photocopies of several books and took pictures of several, even if it were door carvings, I have some records of them that I tap into to make my textiles. And sometimes I translate them into screens, where I could screen print them, or sometimes I translate them into stamps or other techniques that I use. So those inform some of my designs, because those are the legacies I'm talking about that were given to us by our ancestors. And then there's several techniques all over Africa for textile design that one cannot exhaust the wealth of knowledge or of techniques that have been passed down from our ancestors. So I recorded a lot of them and I tap into them now and then, you know, be it the double-headed loom that the Nigerian women use for weaving, or is starch resist, or working with feather, you know, feather with starch on fabric, and doing batik, freehand drawing on batik. So that several, or scrambling, many things that can be done with fabric. So, and then I work with colors in terms of nature. I look at, but I find that most times I'm working, there's 1 or 2 butterflies come to visit me. So I tap into the colors of the butterflies and use that as part of my designs.
Wonderful. So no doubt you just get inspiration, from nature,
yes,
from your environment, basically from your environment.
Right.
Now you mentioned one of the weaving technologies and whatnot. Do you ever get involved in actually that aspect of creating textiles?
Yeah. I make all my fabrics.
Okay.
And I had weavers in Nigeria for a long time. And I buy fabrics, I buy woven fabrics from all over the world. I have a whole collection of different types of fabrics from India, from Africa, from everywhere. And my weavers, after a while, they had to leave because they worked with me for like 10 to 15 years. They had to leave because they were having problems with their feet, their ankles, from daily double-headed loom, throwing the boats, and so you get older, it has an effect on your.
Sure.
Although it looks like the repetition. Makes your.
So you find it harder now to get people who can do that for you?
No, actually, what I do now is just commission work. I just give them an amount that I want, give them the money, and they get it done. And I move on from there.
And basically, it's kind of like your source material that you use, and you build upon that.
Right.
Yeah. Like layers of whatever your creative technique is at the time.
Right. From silks to boucle to Kuba cloth to ange, which is from Nigeria, from different.
Well, it's obvious that that you've really studied the whole thing, and of course, it was your ancestry and your heritage dictated, and to some degree, studied. Fabrics and textiles. Now, you mentioned silks, whether it's wools or cottons and whatnot. How does that enter in how a work is perceived? The kind of fabrics that you use.
My intention is to make people understand that we are one. African fabrics that are made out of wool are more like rugs. They're not necessarily wearable. They're hard and stiff.
Right.
So the people who weave wool are more in the northern part of Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, the Berbers, the Tuaregs, and they're more like decorative or floor, wall. So I blend African textile design techniques with Indian fabrics, with Irish linen, with Indian silks, with fabrics from Malaysia, from Thailand. So, and then that kind of helps me to make a contemporary clothing.
Right. So it's like the world is your palette.
That's it, So I try not to limit myself to just Africa.
Yeah.
So, if I'm trying to appeal to people from all over the world, if somebody comes into my space and it's cold, and most of the fabrics that are made in Africa are for temperate climate.
Yes.
So, if I'm working with silk and they say, well, this will keep me warm, or wool, this will keep me warm in the winter. So there's a tendency that it might appeal to those other people from different parts of the world and Africans also.
So is there at any point in your work process that you make a spiritual connection with some of the material, raw materials? Because I know in certain traditional societies, certain materials have a spiritual connotation.
Yeah, like indigo.
What?
Indigo, ashoke, and Kuba, just to give you 3.
Okay.
Indigo was believed to have, it comes from leaves and barks of trees and bogolan also. Indigo is blue, but it can be elusive. You have to dip it several times, and also depends on your mood. Indigo, when you dip it in the dye pit the first time, will give you yellow. So if you're not patient enough, or if you're not spiritually inclined to realize that, wait a minute, okay, this is a gift coming from the universe. I have to be patient and I talk to my dyes and stuff, and ask before I do anything. I light an incense and ask that the universal minds of creativity come support me. in my work, and things even move faster that way.
Oh, that's good. Go ahead. Say that again. Yeah.
Okay, when sometimes before I start to do my work,
Yes.
I light an incense and pray. I do it like a calling to my ancestors. It doesn't have to be verbal.
Right.
I say it in my mind silently that
Yes.
I need for the spirits of creativity to come and work with me and take control of this work that I'm about to do.
Yeah.
And I find that things move faster, the juice start flowing, and it's everything I do come out pretty attractive, even to me.
Even to you. And I guess that's a good thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And talking about the spiritual aspect of the fabrics, in the Congo, there are several tribes that do the Kuba cloth. They use Kuba. Men use Kuba cloth as a lapa. They wrap it around several times for rites of passage from boys to men.
Okay.
And also some rich individuals, when they pass away, they leave word that when they pass on, they want to be wrapped in the Kuba cloth and buried in it. So there are different types of Kuba. Then in the TV tribe in Nigeria, there's a fabric they weave called ange that they use to wrap the corpse of the ancestors that have made a transition for burial. It's woven in like off-white, all natural fabric. And an indigo is believed to come from, it started from a mistake. Yeah, a child was sitting down, this is a story,
Sure.
A child was sitting down by the door and somebody came to visit the father. The child was eating eba, which is starch, like fufu.
Yeah.
So the starch rubbed on the white garment that the father was wearing, and then somehow they went to try and wash the fabric. They put it on the floor, and there were some leaves on the floor, and the leaves were the leaves that they get the indigo dye from. So the leaves were wet, and then they rubbed on the white, and then that created against the starch. So that created, so the starch resisted the blue from the indigo, created starch resist. So folks found out, wait a minute, okay, that means I could use the starch on this fabric and then kind of make a dye and mordant solution from the leaves and soak the fabric in, and then I got my indigo outfit. So everything is spiritual as far as I'm concerned. The leaves have a life, they have spirits. So do we, and everything on earth is spiritual.
Right.
Having a physical experience.
No, that's really, really very interesting. I had done some work on the Yoruba aesthetic a couple of years ago and examining some of the elements of the aesthetic. And of course, it was about the color palette. I know the Yoruba is different than the color palette, in the West. And of course, it was really interesting to see the prominence of of course, the color palette in Yoruba land, red, white, and black,
right,
as opposed to the multiple colors we get here in the West.
Right.
And I was just fascinated to learn the whole spiritual implication of that, and to see that. So that made a lot of sense to me.
Right.
Now, do you have any other family members that currently involved in the artistic world?
The whole world is my family.
Oh, your whole world? Okay, I like that.
The whole world is my family.
Okay.
They do not necessarily have to be my biological family.
Right, exactly.
But all children are my children.
All children.
Yeah.
Children.
And I know one day, some child is going to come and take my vision forward.
Great.
They do not necessarily have to be my biological children.
Right.
But I know it's done.
Right. So that's the way you kind of transmit a tradition.
Yes.
A process.
Right. Just pass it on as others have inspired me. I'm inspiring other people.
Right.
I have a school in Nigeria.
Oh, you do? Tell us more about that.
I have a. I'm looking to expand it, but we're starting with fashion modeling.
Okay.
So eventually we'll evolve into like an art institute. So right now there's a lot of unemployment in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And a lot of people leave in school without having jobs.
Right.
So the intention is to be able to train them for free. And look for jobs for them as makeup artists, fashion models, photography models, and things along that nature.
Okay.
You know. Eventually, we would, begin to get students for the other parts of arts.
Okay.
Like flat art and wearable art.
Okay. Well, great. Look, Jimmy, thanks for taking the time out to do this for us. It's really been interesting and enlightening, and I look forward to sharing this particular conversation, with the wider audience.
Thank you.
I wish you well here at this venue at the African Festival of the Arts, and always, get a kick out of seeing you.
Thank you.
And I really appreciated, the garments that I've had the pleasure to wear over the years of yours.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy.
I bless you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right.